Okay, welcome everyone who has just arrived. So as Bruno said, I will be talking about guarding our mental health, which is chapter 177, right here from this book, Our Daily Bread, written by Chico Xavier and through the Spirit Emmanuel. And today happens to be Chico's birthday. I believe he would be 108. So happy birthday to Chico. Is anybody new here to jazz? Anybody new faces? Everyone's kind of like been here before? Okay, very good. So welcome back. So Emmanuel invites us to take care or guard our mental health. Right here, think of things that are above and not of those that are of this earth. So that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. And thinking about mental health, what do we kind of think about? Let me hear from you guys. What comes to mind? Hard one.
Balance.
Balance, positive.
Self-aware.
Self-awareness. Just throw it out there.
Peaceful.
Peaceful. Okay, very good. So all of these things are very well, rounded here with the mental health. So Emmanuel is going to focus mostly on, in this chapter, about our thoughts, positive thoughts, and how those thoughts really manifest into our feelings and also into our behaviors, and how it also will affect our spirit. This idea of mental health is not new. You can go back to the Greek, totally forgot the word. Plato, the Greek philosophers. So back, Plato was from 300 years before Christ, and even he was talking about mental health. Here we have his quote, "Thinking, the talking of the soul with itself." So not only is this topic of mental health very timeless, it's also very widespread, because independent of your religion, or if you have no religion at all, it's very common for us to hear people talk about the importance of our mind, body, and spirit. So again, this subject is very widespread. It's old as time, and it's going to continue on to the future because it is such an important topic. So to kind of give a summary of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about a story which is called The Cookie. So there was this woman who went to the airport, and before she went to sit down at her gate, she stopped by one of those little stores at the airport to buy a book, some water, and some cookies to pass the time. And then she goes and sits at her gate. It's very crowded, but she finds a seat next to this man, and then she starts to read her book, and she gets really distracted into reading her book. She doesn't really know what's going on. She reads the next book, but then she notices that all of a sudden, the man next to her takes some cookies from the cookies that are in between sitting them. Remember, she just bought some cookies, right? So the man took some cookies, and in her mind, she's like, how rude. Who is this guy taking my cookies? No one should do that. And then she's like, okay, whatever, I'm going to ignore that. Let me just focus on my book. Inside, she was really upset. And then she keeps reading, and man takes another cookie, and another cookie, and another cookie. And she's like, who is this guy? She's so upset. No one does this. How rude. She's so appalled, and she just is starting to really feel upset. But she still keeps these thoughts in her mind because she doesn't want to be rude herself. And then the last cookie, he breaks it in half, eats half of it, and puts the other half there for her. Funny, right? And she's just so upset, and she tries to just forget about it, put it out of her mind. And then she goes, boards the plane, puts her purse, under the seat in front of her. She goes in to get her phone, and what else does she find in that purse? The cookies that she bought. So they weren't her cookies that she was eating. She was actually eating the man's cookies. She felt so embarrassed and so humiliated. She tried to look for the man in the airplane, but she couldn't find him. And so this is just really a good example of what our thoughts can do to us and how we can judge people for what's happening. And it really affected her feelings and her emotions, right? So this is an idea of what we want to really think about when we're guarding our mental health. Emmanuel will talk of 3 concepts in this chapter for us to really focus on guarding our mental health. 1, uplifting our thoughts. 2, we are what we think. And 3, inner reform illusion. So these are the 3 topics that I will be talking about today. So getting right into it, uplifting our thoughts. Thoughts are really key. Thoughts are, we can think about, the key to the door of happiness. The more positive thoughts we have, the more elevated we're going to get in our spiritual level, and also the more happy that we're going to get, because when we get more elevated as spirits, we're going to get happier. So really those good thoughts are really the key for that happiness. Our spirit resides wherever we project our thoughts. So we can think about this example of this girl at the airport. Really, so her thoughts were just so negative and based on judging the person, and she had this upset inside of herself, and it really affected her. And we have to watch ourselves when we do this. Are we thinking and judging other people, and we don't really know what's going on, and it really affects our emotional state. So here we have, for example, these are some negative emotions that could happen. She felt frustrated when the man was taking her cookies, and then later she maybe felt shame, grief, or guilt. So again, these negative emotions are really going to affect our feelings and our behaviors of how we react to other people. Thoughts really make or break us. We all know of situations when we're going, let's say we're doing something, and if we tell ourselves, I'm not going to make it, I should just give up now, I shouldn't have even started this, most likely that task or that thing that you're doing is not going to work out very well. Though on the other hand, if we tell ourselves encouraging words, you can do it, let me keep trying, maybe I can ask for some help, most likely it's going to work out good, right? So I have a very good example of myself. I never ever thought that I would be doing public lectures or public speaking at all. But there was a really good story that really helps me is that when I was in Brazil, maybe 6-7 years ago, when I was graduating, I was in line to get my cap and gown. And then the lady was asking for everybody's name, as she checked off, okay, you got your gown. And then when she saw my name, she's like, okay, you're going to be doing the oath for the people. And I was like, what are you talking about? I never signed up for this, whatever. And then but I didn't really get to have any time to think about it. And then by the time I got there, I was on this podium like I am now, in front of 200-300 people, and I was doing this oath. And it was in Portuguese. So it was even worse and even harder. But I didn't really have time to worry about it or think about it. And it came out really good, and I wasn't nervous. So that was a really good moment for me to remember of success. So, for example, when I'm maybe not feeling so confident, I can go ahead and access those feelings and those emotions so I can really make myself, really access those successful feelings. Thoughts before we sleep. So what are some of our thoughts before we sleep? Are they negative? Are they positive? What do we do before we go to bed?
They're easy.
They're easy. What do we do before we go to bed?
Count how many hours we're going to sleep until 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, you're like, oh no, I only have 6 hours of sleep. So
I have to get up in a few.
exactly. So, so all these things that we think about, maybe we're thinking about a problem with work, we're thinking about, how many hours we're going to sleep, or maybe we're watching maybe not so good of a movie before we go to bed, or listening to some songs that maybe have some bad lyrics into it. So most likely we're not going to have a very good night's sleep. Maybe we're going to have some nightmares, okay? Maybe we're going to have, these thoughts are going to continue into our sleep. And the opposite is also true. If we have something calm before bed, maybe read a book, say a prayer, it's going to give us the opportunity to have a good night's sleep and to also maybe have some spiritual advice from a friend or, go to a spiritual class. It really opens up the doors depending on how we have our thoughts, positive or negative. Spiritual aspirations. It's very common for us to have material goals. What are some material goals that we have? Making money, house, travel, job, all these things, but it's very rare for us to focus on our spiritual goals. What are some spiritual goals that we can have?
Perfection.
What?
Perfection.
More patient.
More patient. Be humble. So, exactly. So lots of these spiritual aspirations are related to virtues, as we can see. These virtues that we are trying to acquire are individual and intransferable. You cannot go ahead and acquire, the virtue of love and go and give it to me, or Claudine can go and give me the virtue of patience that she's showing. She can't give these things to me. They're only things that we can acquire ourselves. For example, someone can do your taxes for you, right? It's tax time. You can go and have someone do your taxes for you, but you can't have someone learn Spanish for you. Only you can learn Spanish, right? So this is the idea. Some things you can do and some things other people can do for you. To go a little bit further, we have this concept of vertical and horizontal lines, which is presented by Leo. He is a Spiritist author, and he is also a psychologist. And he talks about the vertical lines are these spiritual goals, and the horizontal lines are these kind of earthly material goals. For example, if we have a woman who is generally a very good person, she's an honest person, she raises her kids, she has a good job, you know, she's a good wife, okay? And the next reincarnation, it's the same thing. Relatively good person, honest, she raises her kids, she has a job, she's a good wife, but she's not really changing from one reincarnation to the other. She's not going up. She's not really, you know, acquiring any more virtue. She's just doing kind of the earthly things. Raise kids, have a job, kind of going through the motions of life. So this is very important for us to realize, are we going up or are we just kind of stagnant? For us to understand a little bit more, I want you guys to answer which of the following are vertical aspirations that are also individual and intransferable. Develop in generosity. Up, right? Vertical. Tricky?
Up.
Only up if you are actually acquiring, for example, charity. Because guess what? These things are, someone else can do them for you. If I stop volunteering at the Spiritist Center, if I stop giving lectures here, someone else will go and take my place. So these are kind of like here earthly things, okay? So they're not really, if I'm acquiring charity as I'm volunteering, then that's great, I'm going up. But if I'm just volunteering to volunteer and I'm not really acquiring anything for it, it's just horizontal. Next, learning acceptance. Up. Same idea as the other one. Okay, if you are actually acquiring, you know, some things, you're helping homeless, again, charity, again, if you're actually acquiring that, if you're just doing it to do it, it's just straight. Acquiring forgiveness. Raising my children. Interesting. Okay, so are you maybe doing the best that you can? Are you teaching your kids some values, or are you just, you know, taking them to school, giving them a birthday party? Are you just kind of here stagnant, okay? And also remember, if you happen to pass away, there's going to be someone else who's going to replace you and be taking care of your kids. So that's also another thing that we can think of, is if someone else can replace you. Someone else has to replace me if I stop volunteering, if I stop helping. So this is also a good factor for us to realize that someone can replace that. No one can replace my virtues. But if someone can replace some of these other activities, that's a good indication that it's more this way. Ground bound. So lots of our thoughts are here on earth. Let me keep going. Thought is a radiating energy. Thought is like a big magnet. The more positive thoughts we have, oh, I'm going to do really good on my test. Oh, I'm going to, you know, be really good in my lecture. Then we're going to be attracting those good things. It's a huge magnet. It's the same thing on the other side. Negative thoughts are going to be attracting negative things. If you're a gossiper, you're probably going to attract lots of gossipers. So it's the same idea. And we can think about if, you know, when you think about something, maybe you're in the market for a red truck. And then eventually you're going to start to see these red trucks everywhere because it's in your mind. So it's the same thing. Whatever is constantly in your mind, that's what you're going to be attracting. So it's kind of like a very dangerous magnet if you think about it. What are we attracting? Magnet. When earthly thoughts dominate, lots of our thoughts are based on here on earth. I have to go and pick up my kids. I have to go and do the dry cleaning. Oh, I have to go and make dinner. So all of these things are just kind of here and on the earth. So for us to remember to kind of go up vertical, what things in our life can we do to kind of get vertical? Maybe my neighbor broke her leg. I can go and maybe help her take groceries into her house. So there's always little things that we can do in our life, even if they're so small, to really kind of develop those virtues. Effects of materialistic thoughts. Who has heard of this? Sorry, it's a little bit bad resolution. Who has heard this guy, Dr. Masaru Emoto? He is a Japanese researcher. Yeah?
Yes.
We have this water here. Okay, so he did some experiments on the effects of water, the effects of feelings and emotions in water. So we see here peace and love. So he had these waters, and then there's these feelings around these water of peace and love, and it has these very beautiful formations of kind of snowflakes. Over here it says, you make me sick, I want to kill you. Over here, anger. So these formations are not really very good looking, okay? That's kind of the idea why if you see that we have water sometimes here, because it's really kind of creating some positive vibes around your water. And also a very interesting fact is that our body is made up of 60% water in adults, and in kids under 1, 80%. So what kind of thoughts and feelings are we putting into our body when we have so much water there? Very interesting idea. So reviewing, the first concept is uplifting our soul. Thoughts are key. Keep them positive. Let's have some spiritual aspirations, and let's try to stay away from the ground-bound, kinds of earthly thoughts, because we're just going to stay stagnant in that way. Next one. We are what we think. Death of the flesh does not entail the delights of heaven. So many people may think that when we leave our body, when we disincarnate, we're going to go to heaven. We're going to go to this place that's perfect. We're not going to have to worry about anything anymore. But in Spiritism, we believe in reincarnation. So you actually have thousands of reincarnations to put forth effort for us to reach that happiness. It's not just something that you're just going to be given. We have to work at it. Difficult family members. So we all incarnate with a difficult, or more than one probably, in our family circle. It could be a brother, it could be an uncle, it could be a mother. That person that you're just kind of like, you don't have a very good vibe with them, maybe you have some fights with them. It's not an easy relationship as maybe some of the other family members that you have. And they're in our life for us to really learn a virtue, maybe a virtue of patience with that person, a virtue of love with that person. So it's an invitation from God to really see how we can improve ourselves so that way we can have a good relationship with that person. When we kind of ignore that there's that problem there, it's going to mess with our mental health, because our mind is going to know, okay, there's something weird there. I don't feel so good with that person. And the more you avoid it, the more you're kind of really messing up your mental health. So, brothers and sisters, undo the knot. So every time we maybe have a bad thought, we are creating knots. So I have a little knot here. So let's say you think that you don't like that person because they didn't say happy birthday to you. You're creating a knot. Or you don't like that person because they didn't, hi Julie. They didn't say hi Julie. When I walk into the room, no one said hi to me. All these things that you're doing, these thoughts, these negative thoughts, you're just creating bigger and bigger knots. And so we're going to have to undo these knots someday, just like our difficult family member. If we don't go and face these knots, we don't stop them from happening, they're just going to keep getting bigger, and we're going to have to undo those. And that really affects our mental health. It will be different. So again, continuing in the idea that people think that when you disincarnate, you will be different. You're going to be like this happy person. But no, we bring our vices and our virtues with us just as we are right now. So in this chapter that I'm going over here, we have some examples here. Beyond the grave, individuals find themselves with all the virtues and defects, ideas and vices they sanctioned while in the body. Criminals are drawn to the arena of their crimes if they are not already tied to their accomplices. Hoarders are bound to the superfluous wealth they deliberately hoarded. The vain remain tied to their temporary titles. Alcoholics made the rounds looking to satisfy the thirst that controls their energy centers. So again, just many examples here. What you are now, what you think now, your behaviors now, your vices, your virtues, they're going to continue with you after. So it's important for us to realize this now so we can go and change it as soon as possible. Spirit's book, question 917. So why am I talking about selfishness? Selfishness is the main vice that we have, and all the other vices fall under selfishness. It's the main kind of monster for us to deal with. And this selfishness is really the main reason why we have so many thoughts. We have these negative thoughts about other people, or, oh, they don't like me, and they're all related to selfishness. So let's see here what the Spirit's book says about how we can combat selfishness. Selfishness will be gradually weakened as your moral life attains predominance over material. So again, there is that vertical and that horizontal. Man is often rendered selfish by his experience of the selfishness of others, which makes him feel the need of defending himself against others. but let the principle of charity and fraternity become the basis, and each individual will think less of his own personal interests. So there we have it. So for us to really focus on developing those virtues, those good virtues, for us to, again, have our mental health at peace and in balance. So again, are we selfish? Lots of things, we are. So maybe not as obvious as this, but we have lots of selfishness still inside of us. My thoughts are secret. So we think so often that, okay, my thoughts are only in my mind. No one knows what's going on. Is that true? No. Well, at least we know that God knows, and probably other spirits around us can know what we're thinking. But I think, therefore I am. So lots of times when we think about things, those things are going to manifest into our feelings and also into our behaviors. So other people are going to eventually know what you're thinking. We have a guy who was a researcher, and he went to Africa to study the facial expressions of a primitive tribe there, and he found out that facial expressions in Africa, here in the US, in Brazil, they're all the same. So if a person is happy, they're going to have this kind of, crinkle in their face. If they're sad, they're going to be like this. So here we have here, for example, disgust. Your nose is wrinkling. What else? Your upper lips are raised. Okay, so this is a little bit exaggerated. Okay, so we are going to show these little types of things in our face depending on our feelings. And they're all universal no matter where you come from. So again, you think that your thoughts are secret, but really you are portraying them in your face. No one knows what I'm thinking, so it's not bad. Oh, that person, I don't like what they're wearing. Oh, that person wasn't very nice to me today. Oh, that person's cake wasn't very good. It's okay, I'm thinking about these things because no one knows what I'm thinking. But if you think about the law of cause and effect, when you think about these things, for example, if there's a person that you don't really get along with, it could be a family member, it could be a boss. When you're next to that person, you don't really want to be next to them, and you start to think about all these bad things that are going to happen. And those kinds of things really are going to manifest into our feelings. And then we maybe start to have some effects on our physical body, like, maybe your heart starts to beat, maybe you have a headache, maybe you have a stomach ache. So using the law of cause and effect, again, just because your thoughts are in your mind doesn't mean they're not going to manifest into your micro-expressions and also into your physical body. So then not only are we not taking care of our mental health, then it goes even further into not taking care of our physical body. Thoughts precede our actions. So again, our thoughts, when we have these thoughts, they're going to materialize into feelings and then eventually into behaviors. So if you're really mad that, I don't know, your husband is not washing dishes, and you keep thinking, man, he keeps not washing his dishes, and you keep getting really angry, there's eventually going to be a time that's going to come out into a behavior, and you're going to maybe yell at him. Hey, you didn't wash the dishes. You keep not washing the dishes. So these thoughts are really going to eventually come out into our behavior. So we really want to stop that into, our mental health and really keep that healthy in our mental health so it doesn't come out into other areas of our life. So reviewing concept number 2, we are what we think. It's very important for us to remember that we are responsible for our lives. We're not going to disincarnate and then go to heaven. Everything's going to be beautiful. No, we are going to bring our vices and our virtues with us. It's up to us for us to really work on those things and how we can see that they will not only just stay in our mind, but they will manifest into our feelings and also into our physical body. So it's really important, again, for us to guard that mental health and kind of control our thoughts so they don't come out into other areas and really maybe bother our body. And the third one, inner reform illusions. Who can tell me what's in this picture?
Dog, cat, and bunny rabbit.
Very good. Anybody else?
A wolf.
Yeah, so I got this in my WhatsApp. He sent it to me, and I was like, honey, why are you sending me a picture of a dog, a cat, and a bunny? I don't get the point. And then he was like, look further. So look further here. Here we have a baby, a man, and a mother. Yeah, come outside, sure. I think it's back there, but it's okay. Here we have, I believe, a husband and a wife, maybe? It's kind of hard to tell. We have a person here, a face here, and a face here. And then over here, it looks like maybe 2 kids. But the point is that we see one thing, or in other words, we think that we have this inner reform going on. We think that we're doing good, but in reality, there's an illusion behind it because we think that we're doing something, but we're really not doing it as good as we think that we are. What are some things that we want to change in others? What do we always say? Oh,
What's the question?
what are common things you want to change in others?
To listen more.
I want you to listen to me more.
Be respectful.
I want you to be respectful. I want you to help out with the kids more. Okay, so all these things that we are kind of pointing at people and complaining at people, and we think that, you know, it's good because we can recognize these things in others. So it's like, yes, I know what's good and bad, but you're not really being true to your inner reform because you're trying to change others. And when you're pointing and you're complaining at others, you're using so much energy that is really kind of going to the trash because it's not really going anywhere. You can't change others. So why don't we go ahead and put the energy and put it into ourselves and give ourselves some love, you know? But it's really hard to do that because, you know, changing ourselves is not easy. It's not really fun. It's kind of like looking in the mirror in the morning. You have no makeup on, your hair's messed up, you have weird clothes on. It's not very nice to look at, but we can only change ourselves. We can't change others. So let's use that energy again for us, because us feeling good and our conscious feeling light about we are actually doing an inner reform is going to help us with our mental health because we know that we're doing the best that we can. Spirit's book question 903. Is it wrong to study other people's defects? To do so merely for the sake of criticizing them is very wrong. The only way to profit by such a critical examination of your neighbor's faults is by endeavoring to acquire the opposite virtues. Is he miserly? Be generous. Is he proud? Be humble and modest. Is he harsh? Be gentle. Is he shabby and pretty? So again, it's not so bad to maybe notice other people's defects. The wrong is really pointing and complaining at them. So what we want to do is maybe, okay, we notice that person has this defect. Let's see what is the opposite and the virtue. So I can go ahead and put that into my life. So in that case, it's we can use that to our advantage. The bad part is when we point at other people. And that's really going to mess up again with our mental health. I'll give 50%. So when we give 50%, for example, we're trying to do these virtues and we give 50%, it's really going to tell our conscious is going to know, hey, Katie, you're not really doing the best that you can do. And when you don't do the best that you can do, your conscious is going to mess again with your mental health. What happened?
It's messing up.
It's messing with my lecture. So again, when you give 50%, it's going to mess up again with your conscious, and your conscious is going to tell your mental health, and your mental health is going to be all out of whack because you're not doing the best that you can do. What are some excuses that are common for us to get better?
I don't have time.
I don't have time.
It's too hard.
Too hard.
I'll do it tomorrow.
I'll do it tomorrow. I was made this way. I don't need to change. So these are excuses that really hold us back from doing that inner reform. So again, there's just illusions. You know, we think that we're doing better, but really, are we giving our all? Comparisons. So when someone tells you again, like for example, the dishes, hey, you didn't wash the dishes today. And then your response is, yeah, but you didn't do it yesterday. So we always have this response instead of really looking and, oh, okay, you're right. We're kind of taking that feedback into a positive way. We are always defending ourselves and going back. But that way, we're never going to get better. And again, that's just our illusion. We think that we're getting better, but how often are we just like, no, I don't accept that. I'm going to defend myself. I think of it as like a tennis game. Someone's throwing the ball at you, and you just keep throwing it back. And it's just a never-ending tennis ball game. So you go, hey, you did this. No, but you did it too. Oh, no, oh, no. So it's like all the time, okay? So let's kind of stop playing tennis. Let's get that ball and kind of, you know, really reflect on what that person is saying and kind of take out the truth of that so we can use it to our advantage. 50% results. So if you are only given 50% effort, you're only going to get 50% results. If we have an example of a heart surgeon, he is, doing surgery on your heart, and he's just kind of there. He's having some coffee, he's having some bagel, whatever your heart here. He's not really sewing it up really nicely. You're going to be appalled. Like, why is he only giving 50% effort into something so important? But why don't we think about that in our life? Because after all, we are responsible for ourselves. No one else can do these things, only we can. And in a way, we're stuck with ourselves forever. So why don't we go ahead and put that effort into ourselves, because we're worth it? So here, a bridge, imagine 75% of the bridge. You're going to be like, what government only creates 75% of a bridge? So, okay, that doesn't mean that it's right? Doesn't mean that it's right. It shouldn't be that way. The same thing with our inner reform. We shouldn't be given 75%, 50%, or anything less than 100. We should always try our best. Playing make-believe. For whoever doesn't know that, it means to pretend, okay? Virtuous mask. So we all have this mask that we play when we're here, maybe at the Spiritist Center, when we're at work. Hey, I'm a good person, I'm very truthful, and I always talk to everybody, I do everything right. And then when you get home, the mask falls down, and man, all these vices. So again, we just have this illusion to our inner reform. We show everybody, I'm the best person ever. But, why do we have to pretend like this? So if we look at this image, again, resolution's bad, but it's kind of like an iceberg. We only show the outside world this little bit of us, but really we have so much beneath us. And when we hide that, it's kind of like we're denying that and we're defending ourselves, and it's going to be harder for us to get there and to really, acquire those good virtues. White lies as well. So lots of times we tell white lies, we think that, oh, it's okay, little white lies. I'm going to say that to exaggerate a little fact, or I'm going to say this to kind of, I did something wrong, but if I say this, then, it's okay. But these are really, like, it's to our ego. When we tell white lies, it's really boosting our ego, and that's, again, part of selfishness. So I have a very good example of, I'm a Zumba instructor, and when we are done giving our class, we're supposed to go and check in. And we also have to put the number of people who attended the class. So usually in the morning, there's about 15, 25 max. If you're super lucky that day, there's more people. And then you see other people, other instructors put it in 40, 50 people. And you're like, that's impossible. So it's kind of like, a little white lie. Do they not feel good about themselves? Do they not feel confident that their class was good? They have to go and, say this little white lie. So again, it's important for us to realize when we're doing white lies, because we want to boost our ego. And again, that's part of selfishness, and it's going to really affect our conscious and affect our mental health. So the gospel is the source of change. When we are trying to reform ourselves, it's important that our model is of good moral value. It could be the gospel, it could be Jesus, it could be Buddha, just to make sure that it is a person who has good moral values in comparison to the society. For example, oh, everybody else drinks, so I can go and drink. Everybody else, doesn't wear their seatbelt when they're just going around the corner, so I can do that too. Everyone spoils their kids, I can do that too. So it's important for us when we're doing our inner reform to have that basis on the gospel or something of higher moral value, because the people around us, people in society, are all imperfect. So we don't really want to mirror imperfect people. So Jesus, again, is a good example for us to follow. And wrapping up, inner reform illusions. So when we are not doing our best and we're not being true to ourselves, to our inner reform, we are kind of in our conscious is telling us, hey, Katie, you're not doing as good as you can. And that is going to affect our mental health, whether we know it or not. It really does affect that. And that is it. And the bibliography, again, the last sentence, think of things that are above and not of those that are of the earth. And I used Our Daily Bread, the Spirit's book, and Heaven and Hell. Thank you very much.